What are your feelings about seeing the first black president of the United States?
On one hand, I'm inspired. On the other hand, I'm still very, very cautious. We still deal with the same questions and the same challenges that we've done with every other president. Even though I would love to think he was much further left than he presents himself, as long as he's in that office, the policy decisions that he makes, he's chosen to make those centrist values, which are not always good for working class people. So I'm careful. I'm inspired to see him get there, and I'm hopeful for what he could do. I'm really hoping if he gets in for a second term, he can just shed and just let it all out. Pound and some change.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm still waiting on my hope to be fulfilled.
I see. Yeah, I'll just say real quick. I'm glad I'm living today to see it. You know, just looking at the historical things and what it means historically, for one thing. But the skepticism that you just put forth, I certainly have. And then what the things that you and I do, we have to struggle with. You know, we don't have the time or the luxury to be all happy and thinking, oh yeah, well he'll fix everything. You know, so I know that you're pushing every day. So, and we got to work on some of our brothers and sisters to help them understand.
Right.
You know, that they need to push too.
He's made some very good points. Like he literally, the decision by the Supreme Court about the corporate spending for elections, to come out and just challenge them and say that decision was wrong. That's something I don't think you would have heard about any other way. The way he's challenging overtly these issues around immigration, racial profiling, I don't think you would have heard that.
Right. That's true, and I think, although some of it is rhetoric, so saying things and doing things are two different things. Exactly. And even saying things, like you said, many presidents wouldn't have, if any, wouldn't even say these things. And when the president says something, it means a little different than when you and I say it. Right? So even something like going to Egypt and his speech, you know, none of the presidents before would have been able to do that. None of them would have done that.
Let alone accepting the blame for America's role.
Right.
In the crisis for years.
Yeah. So, you know, I have to give him some credit for that, and I really appreciate him doing those things. So, but has his presidency directly affected your life? Have you seen him in some way?
No. I mean, I wouldn't say that, with the exception of not. I know there's still an enemy over my shoulder, but I'm not as concerned now that it's not George Bush.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you know that there's still issues for us to deal with.
Right.
But we have hope that if we do organize in the right way, there may be a more receptive entity.
Right. You feel like we can push him and we couldn't push Bush or some other presidents, Republican or Democrat.
I think there's much more likelihood if we get an issue to his table, he'll respond. Even if he doesn't fully respond the way we want him to.
Right.
Especially in terms of like, look at what's happening with the wars,
right.
Like Iraq and Afghanistan.
Right.
And we're definitely happy he's pulling away from Iraq, but we're nowhere near happy with the fact that he's deeply entrenched in Afghanistan.
Right. So, right. Well, that was something I was definitely going to ask you about. What are your thoughts on the U.S. wars and our relationships with the rest of the world?
I think, one, the issue specifically we talk about Afghanistan and the way it's been destabilized, we owe a lot for what's been done there. And let alone in Iraq, we've significantly destabilized the region, which has increased substantially the amount of destruction we're seeing. Not only in direct hand-to-hand combat, but in what everybody's classifying as terrorism and acts of violence, both at home and abroad. Withdrawing from that involves a policy shift I don't see us making.
Right.
Definitely not in this decade, in this generation.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be a beautiful thing if we could force that to happen.
Right.
But yeah, I get disgusted by the level. There's so many vested interests in what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And that goes right back to the point of why it's necessary for things like the U.S. social reform to happen.
Right.
Because you have to attack the institutions that are driving it.
Right.
You You have to attack the Halliburtons of the world. Not only that, the British petroleum, everyone else that are actually profiting off the wars. And every time a war happens, they also fracture some of the states. So we have to identify those enemies. More so than we have to identify the enemies that we're seeing on the battle.
Right. The ones in many ways they create. Or one of the things I feel about Al-Qaeda, and let me be clear, and I'm not saying this for the right, I just want to be clear, I see Al-Qaeda as a problem. And in many ways, to me, the Al-Qaedas of the world and many of our own politicians are not that different from each other. They both want to control things, and they both see violence as a way to control things. So we have to deal with them. But what are the big issues that we really face? One of the big issues we face is climate change. Not Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is a blip compared to climate change. Another big issue we face is nuclear proliferation. And the United States has more nuclear weapons than anybody in the world. We're trying to tell Iran and North Korea, you can't have one, and we got thousands, which is crazy. And a big issue when people talk about a threat to our way of life, it's changing our fuel source. That's a threat to our way of life, because at some point we're not going to be able to use oil like we do. And what are we going to use if we haven't changed our base of technology so that we can sustain lights and my computer and stuff like that? So, but what our leaders do is take these boogeymen, that's in the closet, and say these are the problems. Don't pay attention to these real problems that I really don't have any. Either I'm making money off of this problem, or I don't have any way to fix it. So let me show you Al-Qaeda. So that's what I'm thinking. So.
And I get disgusted with that directly. Because we've seen technology. Before gasoline automobiles became the mainstay, they ran cars off steam. They ran it off oils. They came up with a car. I can't remember what it was in the 90s. The electric car that ran perfectly. But they've been so unwilling and dragging their feet on any type of change that we become more and more and more addicted. And then when we do see events like what's happening right now in the Gulf, you become sad, shake your head.
But that didn't have to happen. It didn't have to be that way. And a good book is Addicted to Oil. You can find it on Veterans for Peace's website.
There you go.
VFP, veteransforpeace.org. Check out Addicted to War. That's what it is.